Hi, I'm Brad Sugars. Welcome to Business Basics. Today we're actually going to stick with the topic of mastery and making sure that we've got the absolute mastery of the basic fundamentals of business in play before we start building all of those extra wonderful parts of extra profitability on place. It's good to have the basics down pat, to have a solid foundation. The area of mastering we're looking at today is obviously moving from chaos to control in the time mastery area, or mastery depending upon where you are in the world. Let's take a look at the time target first and foremost, because this is a very important understanding. Stephen Covey wrote about the understanding of time with urgency versus importance in his great book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Taking that to a slightly different tangent, though, and putting it as a target. If you look at the outside of the time target, you have all of these things in there that are, well, very simply put, these are things that are not urgent and they're not important. Really, it's just a... Well, in many cases, it's the things you do that say where you're killing time or passing time or basically just wasting time. Now, remember, time is your only limited resource on this planet, so make sure you use it to the best of your ability. We move on in and we start getting things where, well, now we're into a total delusional area where we're doing things that are urgent but not important. And you'll get to the end of the day and you'll think, gee, I've been so busy, but I've achieved nothing. You ever had that sort of a day, or even a week, hopefully not a week, just a day at a time? When you get to that, it feels like you're achieving so much, but the reality of it is you're actually just doing very mundane things. They're not important, even though they are urgent. And that's why many of us, as we get more and more successful, have assistants and personal assistants to do jobs like that need to be done. Yes, they have to be done, but not at the pay scale of the person who's the owner of the business. They have to be done by somebody else as they're growing and they're learning, and then you can get on with the majorly important tasks. That's where we get into the next circle and we start to get into demand. It's really important in demand that what we actually look at here is we're doing tasks that are both urgent and important. And for most of us as business owners, that's a lot of our day, a lot of our week. You know, we hope to spend 70% of our time in there, maybe even 80% of our time in there. Generally, you'll find you'll end up with 10% of your time out in the 2 outside circles with the things that aren't important. But we want to get into the things that are important. And then finally, our goal is obviously to get to the centre, where we're doing things that are not urgent, but they are important. Like me sitting here filming these videos. They're not urgent that they're filmed, but it's really important that I do it for the future of the company and the future of everything that happens. It's like planning your business, doing your budgets, training, learning, growing. It's like working with hanging out with your kids. It's vital that you actually do it. It's not urgent, but it is important. So the 3 main areas of time mastery, let's take a look at them. Self-mastery, planning mastery, and delegation mastery. You know, each and every one of these in and of itself is something that has to be mastered for you to be able to get more productive in your day-to-day of running the business. Firstly, let's look at self-mastery. Self-mastery is what I call it instead of time mastery. See, people have looked at time management for many, many years, and, well, time management hasn't changed the fact that the clock keeps ticking. What we have to change is our ability to manage ourselves within that time frame. How do you actually do that? Well, I'm going to give you 3 hints to make sure that you have the best time mastery, or as I call it, self-mastery possible. Number 1, at the end of every single day, make a list of what has to be done the following day. It is as simple as that. If you make a list of what has to be done tomorrow, at the end of the day today, your productivity levels will increase dramatically. It might seem simple, and generally it is. The next thing is, when you do that, prioritize that list. What are the most important ones? What are the A's? You can only have 5 A's, 5 B's and 5 C's. That's it. If you give yourself more than 5 of each one, then you're going to be in trouble. You know, it's just not going to get done. So make sure you break it down too. Don't put make 25 phone calls type thing. Break it right down. Call Fred, call Mary, break it right down, because we've got to do that to make sure. Then what you've got to do is allocate a time to it. So allocate the time of the day you're going to do those tasks. So those phone calls might be from 9 till 11. You put them in the diary. You allocate a time for each one of those phone calls. This one will be at 11. This one will be at 9. This one will be at 9:05, 9:10, 9:15. Now, a lot of people think, gee, that's a lot of work to do. But imagine the productivity you'll get out of yourself the next day. Imagine if everyone that worked for you managed themselves with this level of self-mastery, managing themselves, not time. Second, we go on to the planning mastery. Now, look, it's pretty dang simple. If you want to have a good level of time productivity, you need to have a good plan. I believe in the 80-20 rule. 80% of life should be doing and 20% should be getting ready to do. That means training, planning, getting yourself ready, staying in that zone where you're actually building yourself to a point where you can get real results. See, when we sit down and take a look at it, planning mastery is not that complex. Planning mastery is actually relatively simple. The challenge is most people don't put the time into planning. You've got to allocate time to planning. On a weekly basis, there needs to be time every afternoon to plan the following day. There needs to be time on Monday morning and on Friday afternoon to plan the week. You know, this is what needs to happen. On a monthly basis, there needs to be at least a day a month to plan the month, and on a quarterly basis, at least 2 days a quarter to plan the quarter. You know, these are the things that we do when we want to be successful in managing our time and managing ourselves and planning ourselves and our business properly. Finally, we get to delegation mastery. Now, delegation's an interesting one. There's two words I want to bring up: delegation versus abdication. In most cases in business, I find it's more abdication than delegation, where someone just gives someone the task and then walks away. Pure delegation is far different to that. With delegation, you have to understand, we need to train people, we need to get people educated, we need to give them a system of delivery, we need to give them a system of reporting, and we need to give them a system of feedback if they don't get it right. So, with these things in play, then we can truly delegate tasks to people. Don't come to me and say, well, I find it hard delegating if you don't have systems in place for people, if you don't have the documentation and the reporting and the feedback loop in place. Very important that if you're going to delegate properly, that you delegate properly. So overall, is time mastery an important aspect of making sure that our basic business fundamentals are in play? Absolutely. It's one of the 4 major keys. We've got to make sure that we've got ourselves mastered and we're setting our planning in place and that we're delegating properly the tasks that we need to delegate. You know, if you work out that during your week you've got 2 or 3 tasks that are taking up most of your week, find a way you can delegate it to somebody else and get it done in the same way, in the same fashion, through a system-trained approach. And then, hey presto, you'll find you've got a lot more time to get on with the more important things of running your business. I'm Brad Sugars, and these are the Business Basics.